Forgotten Dreams is a psychological, thrilling kind of creepypasta that dives into the subject of dreams. It starts off with a disturbing description of how we have dreams every time we sleep, but we don't remember them. The narrator, whose name is Mark, details an experience that he had 3 years ago. So this is more of a flashback or kind of a experience story, which I think was the right way to go with this type of story. Anyway, he talks about his old roommate named David, who specifically requests not to wake him up while he's talking in his sleep. He doesn't give a very specific reason why, it's just natural instinct. Mark usually would go to bed before 11 p.m., and apparently he served in the Navy, so loud noises don't usually wake him up. So hearing David talk in his sleep was never going to be something that he was worried about dealing with. Well, Mark's also a huge soccer fan, and when the World Cup begins, he decides to stay up and watch it. As many sports fans tend to do, trust me on that one. He invites David to watch with him, but David denies it, and reminds him again not to wake him up when he hears him sleep talking. Well, as expected, David starts to talk in his sleep. Mark initially tries to ignore it, but after a while he can't, because David starts moaning, and the voice coming out of his mouth is very demonic sounding, and it freaks Mark out. Despite being told not to wake him up, Mark goes in the room and wakes David up. David starts screaming and shouting about some pretty disturbing things that he saw in his sleep. So Mark calls an ambulance, and it comes and takes him away. 2 weeks later, David committed suicide, and the details behind it, described by Mark, are just so disturbing and so brutal. It's actually really tragic the way this goes down, and I actually think this is this is the bulk of the story. This is where it gets really good. Mark moves out of the apartment and moves into a smaller one. I'm not going to give away the full ending to this. For one, I think I'd be doing an injustice towards the story. This is one I think people need to read or listen to on YouTube to get a full experience, and I can't do it justice. Just trust me, this one's really disturbing and well worth your time. Needless to say, I really enjoyed this creepypasta. I think it's very psychological, very disturbing, and it makes you wonder, what do you dream about? Do you even want to know? Dreams are not always a good thing. Sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. But this one really dives into what you're dreaming about, and do you want to know? I've said it already. Give this one a listen or read it somewhere online. It's well worth your time.